We're going to get the word out and then we are going to close out because it does kind of eat up bandwidth to have all the tabs I normally have up for research up. Welcome to the Bonnet Chronicles. I am your hostess, Kalari GXC, and as y'all know, some of yous may know, some of yous may not care, but yous come in for this. I took about a 3 day much needed detox break from online social media stuff. I got some more writing done. I've been working on projects. I just wanted to take some time away from the foolishness of shenanigans. As you know, on the last Bonnet Chronicles, I had to call out grown people yet again for playing the click game. And it just, every time it gets close to a certain holiday, I know that for my own nerves, I need to take time away. It was this time about 3 years ago that I cussed out Rob Schneider's ass. Who's Rob Schneiderton, you may ask? Good that you asked that because honestly, I forget he exists. And then Twitter reminds me that these old SNL got random comedy roles, no matter how offensive they are, type actors, think they're still important enough to tell the people who are directly impacted negatively, especially by racism, what racism is, and then quote Martin Luther King at us. And it was because of him 3 years ago, yesterday, that I decided me and Twitter on MLK Day is never going to happen again. I started from my own mental health and to not lose my account because cussing out white celebrities tend to put your account at risk. Decided that I would take Martin Luther King's Day away from the internet, and I have not regretted it. It is my third time, well, technically second time, because I don't think I did it 3 years ago. 3 years ago is when I cussed him out. 2 years running, I have avoided that day online because of the superficial nonsense. And speaking of which, I didn't miss much. I got back today, wanted to know what was going on, wanted to know what the happening was. You know, typical people screaming about what's going on with President Biden. Why is this investigation going so fast? And my brain goes, a sitting president has requested his AG do his job. His AG is doing his job. They found a couple of more papers here and there. This is not a national security issue. That is why it's questionable. People are acting like it's something serious. If it was something serious by now, we would hear about it from the president, from the AG, because both men are by the book. It's why it's even being done in the first place. Welcome to the chat, Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa, I've seen you before. Welcome to the chat. But what troubles me about taking time off is that Twitter never stops. People's attitudes and arrogance and gatekeeping don't stop. So when I got back, the first thing I asked was what happened, and of course, respecting them let me know that Afro Sabi, somebody who you know I respect because she puts in the footwork, y'all. I don't say this lightly about people. When you think about people who are just Twitter hashtagivists and actual activists, Afro Sabi is the real deal. She does the work, boots to ground, makes sure to drive her elders to voting. She is on par to being one of my favorite people when it comes to expressing voter rights and doing what she can to help people where she lives. So she made the mistake on Twitter, I guess it's called, to share what she did, which was bake. And apparently, to some people, bacon with butter is bad because dietary stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, as a fat chick especially, I'm not vegan. I know, big shock. But I also have to deal with both anemia and other things. So, yeah, no, I'm never going to be able to go 100% vegan. Not interested anyway. That's just not how I was culturally raised. Some of us were raised to be omnivorous. Some of us still will elevate certain aspects of the diet and have to avoid. I can't eat seafood or shellfish because of my allergies. So, because of my weird allergy combo, I have to be careful with what I make. And I use a lot of fresh products, including butter. But apparently, Afrosabi just putting out there that she used Kerrygold butter, which I put some in my cart today because A, it's cheaper than the stuff I was buying. B, I heard it really makes good stuff, and you can see from these pictures she put out, it does look like it does the job. But you had this lady try her with just nonsense. Let me get that image because I just couldn't believe the stuff that was said to her. And according to this lady, she has a friend in Ireland, and the country's falling apart because of cows. Which, what? Maybe there's something local that you could. It was basically this alleged indigenous woman because everybody can be whatever they want online unless you prove, like I tell people all the time, I'm black. I know I'm using a drawn avatar my friend made, and they think, oh no, you can't be black. I'm pretty much, you can't hide it, black. So yeah, I'm black. But some of these questionable envelopeans, as I like to call them, seem to want to gatekeep stuff, and now butter seems to be their bridge too far. All she did was create the hashtag Buttergate, from what I heard. Like I said, y'all didn't have me miss too much in my 3 day detox. But the nerve that some of these white women have, and honestly, I feel like it's about control at this point. She didn't care about Ireland or cows or anything else. It was she seen somebody being joyfully themselves and decided to step in and micro macro aggress her way all over Twitter. And they've been all over the place forever if you're black in America or brown in America or something that they don't think identifies as straight white Christian white male in America. So we're used to your nonsense. We just don't have to take it. And she turned what could have been something that would have annoyed most of us into a great hashtag, into a lot of sales for Kerrygold. I know I'm one of them because a lot of us cook. A lot of us have been home cooks even before the world went crazy to COVID. And it's really tiring to have somebody who had no reason to step in, none whatsoever, to weigh in and try to make her feel bad for buying butter. Welcome to the chat, Fluffy. I just like it. I love that. I love that it not only spent properly in Afro Savvy's favor, but people realized how silly it was. Black Twitter, Irish Twitter came together and said, "We're not going to do this today. We are not going to let you keep macro aggression all of our happiness. We're going to buy butter, we're going to bake, and we're going to be all right." I know for some of you, life is a bit harder than it needs to be, and you don't have control in your house, you don't have control over your so called social circles, so you bring that aggression to Twitter, to customer service people when you go out. Use a rude because you know that you don't get listened to where you want to get listened to. But you ain't gonna get listened to here either. There was absolutely no reason to attack the whole country of Ireland like that. There was no reason to lie about your so called friend that told you that it was cows. Like I said, I don't want to not like vegans. I think a lot of people that I like and respect practice that. But what I don't enjoy are people that think that their dietary choices should be for everybody. Because, oh, it's better for the environment. You still have to consume stuff to live. And unless you found a way for your body to exist just being, you're not as ethical as you think you are. You still have to put fuel in you. And some people, based on their health issues, based on a whole lot of things, and based on just liking food, because that's our right, should be allowed to coexist. There are way too many of you who need to be aggressive with what you want to do in life. And using the same people that go, oh, I'm anti fascist, but ooh, you ate a cheeseburger, I'm going to be mad at you. Okay. You know that just because you don't enjoy something doesn't mean other people can't. I would never, ever tell anybody because I enjoy certain things that the only way they can hang out with me is to be like me. I've never understood people that act like that. Yet, if you go by Twitter, especially, it is full of those people. And this Buttergate, as they would jokingly call it, just shows how many of you have absolutely no control in your life. And you think you can exert some form of control on social media and other places that it doesn't belong. And you're going to pick the wrong one with that. Because while Afro Savvy, she turned it into a positive, she got a lot of people talking, buying butter. I probably would have just cussed this heifer out because it was absolutely everything she typed at her was hyperbolic. Everything she tried to amp up for no reason just seemed like a typical person who probably is vegan. She gives me those leans that that's where she was coming from, trying to police how people shop, and we're not going to do that. This is not the time. And you really got to stop with whatever that is. But on to why I needed a break yesterday. I think it goes without saying that Martin Luther King's birthday becoming a holiday, while relatively new, because I remember being a child when it was passed. I remember a lot of people fighting, and I believe it was New Mexico that was like, we don't care if you pass it as a national holiday, we're not doing it. So it was really messy to get this day in the first place. And when it was officially passed, I remember Stevie Wonder with his Happy Birthday to You song. I remember the joy and celebration, but I also remember the pushback from we're not racist, but types. So it's always been a weird day for me as a black child because while we want to celebrate Martin Luther King, it felt like people only wanted bits and pieces of him. The bits and pieces they could neatly try to make fit their agenda has been a big thing the GOP has been trying of late. Utilizing his name, talking about, oh, Martin Luther King Jr. would have been for the modern GOP. You mean the person that literally followed up the first black president with the turd of 45? That GOP? Or maybe the GOP that I just watched last week, patting one of their few black representatives on his head like he was a good house Negro. Maybe the GOP who wants their women in Missouri to keep their arms covered like it's the new Gilead. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., let's get all his titles right, would not have been for the modern GOP, but they love to spin this, ignoring the fact that a lot of their clan ancestors are the reason why he died. Because his talk of both equality and equity, of men being judged by the content of their skin, by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, was too much for them. He was labeled a danger. He was put on FBI lists. They literally wiretapped his phones. Him, the Black Panthers, who are the reason why we have WIC and other social programs. The reason why there were so many gun laws on the books in the first place, because brothers were arming up and saying, okay, we're not going to ask for permission no more. And it scared white people how organized and militant the Black Panthers were. But what also scared them was the other side, how compassionate Reverend King was, how eloquent he was, how he motivated people to think beyond these skins that we're in, to just be human together and work together for better. And he got a bullet for his troubles. So yeah, the last 3 days I could have been on throwing back to people who want to only talk about his I Have a Dream speech with letters from the Birmingham jail. I could have kept playing the clips of him on several talk shows talking about the white moderates who sit back while everything is burning around them, but know that they won't feel the fire directly, so they don't want to help us fight. Or the ones who very loudly try to help us fight by talking over us instead of listening to those of us negatively impacted. The ones who think they're helping by saying, we know what's better for you. We've never experienced it directly ourselves, but we know what's better for you black people. So let us tell you what. Or even worse, the people who call us low information voters still, even though they know now that we vote for our survival and y'all's. It's frustrating. So the last 3 days, instead of seeing stuff from like Joel Osteen, Mr. I'll lock my church down when there's an actual storm instead of letting people in because ill poor people, Mr. Prosperity Pastor over here talking about fighting darkness with light. And I am of the belief, being shamanic, that you need both darkness and light to exist because there has to be balance. So all of these people, especially people who have proven themselves to be greedy anyway, talking about fighting darkness with light, don't fool me none. I never trust people like this because anybody who isn't walking the path of balance worries me. And welcome to the chat, HB Dardalis. But him, guys like Rob Snyder, the Muppet Lauren Bobber, and I don't say Muppet to insult Jim Henson's creations. I love the original Muppet cast, but I always thought of the GOP as these weird moral Muppets, like these puppets of what politicians should be, whose hands are up their back depends on how much money they offer. So when I call Bobber a moral Muppet, that's where I'm coming from. I heard that she tried it with Martin Luther King as well, trying to tribute. And yes, I seen that hideous bronze statue that they paid $10 million for in Boston, and my brain goes, y'all had $10 million to put that weird embrace statue that from the side truly looks phallic. But you couldn't help the people who are still in low income housing in several areas, including Mission Hill and a few other places in Boston. You couldn't take that money to help black higher education, donate it to an HBCU, donate it to an actual church in Dr. King's name. No, you made a big bronze phallic statue trying to tell black people that it was for us when we could have used that $10 million, man. Like, I don't understand the disconnect. Like, if you told me today, 10, we got $10 million in our budget. We want to do something for the black community for MLK's birthday. What would you suggest? And I would go, okay, black daycare would be good. You can fund that. You could feed people. You could revitalize certain areas. You could actually build up a clinic for health concerns. There's a lot of things $10 million could do to help our community, and instead you wasted it on this ugly ass statue. And I just don't understand the disconnect, because that's the only word that comes to my mind when I think on some of these tone deaf things. It's like the people who say things like, we need to have a conversation about homelessness. I want to have a symposium, especially when they live in like really rich areas like Silicon Valley. These make millions of dollars every day, every second, depending on the company. But you just want to have conversations when you should be taking the money, paying builders to build housing so that people are not on the streets. Instead, we get videos of old men turning hoses on homeless people because, unsightly. But we're supposed to be a first world nation. Yous would not be what Martin Luther King Jr. was about. And it hurts my spirit that people want to invoke his name, want to invoke some of the things he was about as a gotcha. To stop the voices of the people who he knew were voiceless in the first place. And worse yet, some of you want to twist your woes into it. And like I said, Dr. King was about equality and equity. So nobody should feel like they can't speak up in his name. But what we're not going to do is keep treating your economic problems the same as systemic racism. I had to tell a lady that today. She called herself a fellow witch. I'm not going to doubt her. This is why I say not every witch can be a part of the same coven. Not every witch can have the same sisterhood, because some of you are out for yourself. She said, "Oh, this joke post. Let me get this joke post up, because I chuckled at it. I thought it was kind of clever." But I feel that a lot of people who not only don't have a decent sense of humor, but also want to look for anything to be upset about, didn't. And, it's pretty clear. This is why we turn to humor. Now, Cointel Hoax, which I laugh because I think her name is a play on Cotel Pro, who I used to follow back in my day when I was trying to break into political journalism, and he just knew he was the big breaking story guy. But I like that she made a pun of his name. And she goes, nothing gets white people heated like being called white, which has been a problem. Like, literally, if you tweet the word white on Twitter, you could get dinged. They have timed me out for using the word white, and it's like I didn't come up with the rules for this ethnicity stuff. And it's not my fault that some white people get embarrassed by how other white people carry themselves, and now they don't like the term white being thrown around. Maybe get more upset by the antics and not by the term. I don't know. But she said nothing gets white people heated like being called white. So I have some alts. People of no color, alabaster Americans, people of means, why everything is effed up, single conscious Americans, which I'm going to get back to that in a moment because I love that one too. Traumavores, perfect. I truly, that one is taking Envelopeans by storm because I was in love with Envelopeans till I saw Traumavore. Super enfranchised and people of colonial complexion. The thing about single conscious Americans really speaks to me because a lot of white identifying, and that could be actual people with Caucasian roots, that can be people who can pass, that can be people who are black who think that they're passing enough. But the ones who get to call themselves that are truly white Americans, and they seem to be hyper focused on what they don't have or what others have more than any other group. Collectively speaking, y'all, when you're younger especially, will love to say you want socialism. You'll say, oh, we should all be under one banner and one blanket and taking care of one another as long as I get mine and I'm considered elite still. And that's not how it works. And what you want is the same tribalism that some of us have grown up with, but you don't seem to understand that it means taking care of all of us. It means sometimes the people around us benefit from it, but we are all taken care of. And welcome to the chat, Zai. Thanks for the lurk. I think what troubles me about some of these young white people is they don't want to be called white. They want to benefit from whiteness. They want to tell black people they don't see color, yet most of them never grew up around anybody as dark as me. Or if they did, we were their only black friend. In a whole sea of white people, one of the things that bothered me when I was a kid, especially, was going from a neighborhood where almost everybody either looked like me or had a ethnic blend that I was used to. Like my neighborhood alone, when I lived with my grandparents, had a lot of different ethnicities. We had a Russian family, we had a Polish family, we had a black family, we had Japanese and Korean family, and I believe German speaking family. It was a mixed neighborhood because they were business owners, and I believe the Italians owned the fish market. So it was the store row because my grandparents owned the liquor store. It was just a row of people who owned the businesses next to each other. So you got a big combination, but the neighborhood around us was almost all black. So when I went to elementary school and even most of junior high school, while we had some kids that weren't black, it was a majority of black kids. And then my mom, worried about our future, moved us to the other side of Staten Island. High school was a doozy. Walking into that classroom for the first time and not seeing anybody that was remotely black was shocking. I learned how to code switch really quick because it was on you to look smarter. It was on you to seem smart because if you didn't, you got singled out. It was stressful, unnecessarily stressful. And there were so few of us at times that just gravitate into my friends during lunch and early mornings was like a respite because I knew once I got into class, you weren't going to see kids like me. And I know why my family did that now, but it's troublesome. And it's troublesome that it's still going on in this country, on top of having people crying about CRT, which, once again, I'll remind you every cast if I have to that CRT is not a thing. It is a GOP crafted myth. It is an elective in certain law schools in America. It's not even in every law school. And you have to sign up for it and hope that the professor there is teaching it. It is a way to teach critical race theory to people practicing law, which is supposed to be a neutral field depending on the type of law you're taking. So critical race theory is taught to these people who are studying law so that they can make better objective rulings if they're going for a judicial seat. It is not taught to your kindergartner. It is not taught to your elementary school student at all, or junior high school student, or high school student. And more than likely, unless they sign up for it, it's not being taught to your college student. But because it is such an easy word to throw around, we have watched racist, anti woke types throw it around like the boogeyman here. We have watched school boards inundated by loud Clarens, as I like to call them now, not just Karens, Clan Rins, yelling about CRT is going to be, it's going to destroy us. We can't have our kids learning about the past. They'll feel shamed about themselves. They won't feel shamed about themselves if you teach them to be decent people. They will be ashamed of the past acts and not repeat them. But the problem is some of you want us repeating those past acts, and you want people to be too stupid to realize that's the goal. I'm going to get ready to show you a video because I need people to see just how serious the issue is. Because way too many people think, oh, it's not that bad, Tin. You're being hyperbolic, Tin. But am I? Because I don't think I am. When I show this video, I'm hoping that you have the same feeling I do with this. There's no sound. I just want you to look at this. Look at this. There's no reason for this. And I know Chris had the girl eye response. We know our country has an issue with guns. I'm not going to act like my community doesn't have its own problems with guns. It's just funny how heavily regulated our skin tone is. So it's a lot harder for us to be registered gun owners, even though being from a military family, we have plenty of black registered gun owners, former soldiers especially. But when I see stuff like this isn't cutesy. He is literally training his child for something that he doesn't realize is he's going to turn around and turn that into either a school shooting, domestic violence situation, because these guns are not toys. One of the things that happened to me when I was younger, it's just the way my grandfather was. I don't believe it's abusive at all. He wanted every kid in our family that was old enough to train because he believed that there was going to be some falling out. He went through so much coming back from the war. He was prepared for America to go down for some stuff. So we had guns put in our hands when we were younger, but we were told these are not toys. They are used for the intent to kill. If you pick one up, you better be aiming to use it. He would never have us on TikTok or videos at this age showing off our gun skills because A, if you're going to be training the babies for that, you're making a public declaration of what you're doing. And I said, this is domestic terrorism training at this point. White people have been feeling their societal power slip for over 50 years now. It's why so many are like, oh, let's make America great again by crushing other people. They realize society doesn't want that. They don't want us being dominated by harmful, hateful beings that want to tell us how to live, tell us who to love, tell us how to be under their weird God. So we have been collectively saying no to their nonsense, and this has been their answer. They are complete ammo sexuals, as I like to call them. They have embraced their tools of destruction because that is the only power they have left. And they refuse to allow us to elect people to regulate them because they know without their guns, they have absolutely nothing. We have proven that they're not effective leaders, especially after 45, and this shit show of a House wasting our time with Kevin McCarthy's ego. We have proven to them that they are not decent survivalists. Several millions of them dying to a preventable illness because they can't be told what to do. That weird indoctrination the GOP kept putting in their head that the government should be involved in their daily lives came right back to bite them in their self-entitled behinds. The only power they have left is in arming themselves and arming their kids. But the bad thing about this is I guarantee you it is also on top of that tough love that they want to call it, which isn't really love. It's just abuse. Driving into this young kid's head that force is the only thing he should know and carry out. And trust me, it's going to have disastrous results. So many school shooters had ease of access to weapons, had parents who did shit like this or took Christmas pictures with them holding weapons. So many people wonder why our country can't let go. Look no further than shit like this. It is so normalized in our country now, especially for white men to think, I gotta teach my son how to kill. I've got to carry a weapon. I need an open carry state. You never know when them might come after me. And it's like, well, who's them? Well, they're gonna have a drag show down at this place that I don't even really go to anyway. But it bothers me on a moral level, so I need the arm for that. Why? If your drag show bothers you, ignore it. It's not for you. If the drag show bothers you because other people might enjoy it, ignore it. It's not for you. The problem is you want control, and this is all they have left. Violence. They're not smart enough to properly lead. They're not smart enough to exist in a country where there's actual equality. So they think that they are going to terrorize us with this gun violence. And what's insidious about it is how socially acceptable their nonsense is. I'm going to switch to just the camera. It troubles me when I see videos like that because for so long we have been having debates. I watched y'all not using the chat, but I watched people on Twitter debating the Odell situation on the plane when I explained clearly what microaggressions are and how some white people cannot stand to see us just living our own best black lives. Especially if we do things like flying first class, especially if we're in spaces they don't think we belong. They will amplify their societal pecking order to put us in place. So when I say this isn't coming from a place of just shaming people, but to point out the issue, I don't need you to push back on me on that. And that's the problem I see from some of the fence sitting types. Some of the people who want to tell me they're my ally but aren't really. You see how some of these people are literally training babies to hold weapons, to fire weapons, because they want a race war. They want to attack black people for simply existing with black skin. Yet you don't see the issue. And you've got to start seeing it if you want to call yourself an ally of mine. And you just get more in your feels about being called Envelopeans or Traumavores. I'm telling you, Traumavores is really winning it for me. But you don't get mad at the people who distract us from the topic at hand and make it about them and their feelings on it. Well, you hurt my feelings. I call Hakeem Jeffries Barack Obama 2.0 because I was trying to compliment him. I didn't think it wasn't a compliment. That's on you. You would never like it if we started calling every famous white person by one name because you don't view yourself as anything but leaders. And you think that making us interchangeable isn't a microaggression. But it is because it diminishes the fact that we have to work that hard. And Hakeem Jeffries deserves his own flowers without having to be compared to anybody else. And I would say that if you were comparing somebody else to him, one of the things that used to come up when I was growing up, especially, was people trying to compare Martin Luther King with Malcolm X, and they were two men with clear goals for Black people, but two separate ways of approaching it. And neither one of them would have wanted to be compared or contrasted against each other because the goals were for Black human beings, people with melanin, people who didn't pass, especially that weird ass one drop rule. I'm gonna get to that rant in a moment because I seen a young lady trying to score Twitter points on that. The goal was to make us human because we had spent 400 years not being human. We got emancipated allegedly in the Jim Crow, had to fight for our civil rights, and was still losing babies to bombings in churches, getting arrested for sitting in the wrong side of the bus, drinking out the wrong fountain, going to the wrong movie theater, being in literal sundown towns, and risking death. It was a nightmare and still is in some states, including my state that I'm currently living in, Michigan. I seen that article earlier today about how will Michigan wanting to get away from its negative reputation on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, even though they have a reputation of a Black DoorDash driver nearly getting beaten to death for being in their town. That is the reality of our country right now. And I have way too many people trying to tell me they're my ally instead of helping us change this. It's exhausting. And then you got Twitter, home of a I gotta be right even if I'm not right type takes. Arguing about the one drop rule and how, we weren't supposed to fight against this so that everybody can be Black. And it's like it wasn't about everybody being Black. It was about gatekeeping whiteness. It was about if they could trace your lineage to anything Black in order to keep you out of business, out of education, out of anything, that's what they used it for. But what the heck is wrong with being Black? I don't mind people that want to be Black, especially if they are Black. But she wanted to get into the minutiae, and I could tell that she was one of these mixed people who they're really confused in what they are. I don't blame them. Our community doesn't really do that well by our mixed babies either. My son had to deal with it with even his own relatives. It is a hard path to walk when both of your communities either try to reject or take you depending on your usefulness. And what we've learned is you don't get to define us. You don't get to tell us what we can choose. And I seen the point that young lady was trying to make about the one drop rule. She was wrong. Because historically speaking, it was really used to gatekeep who could call themselves white. And it was also used to destroy people that they knew would really have genetically Black ties, whether they knew who they were doing, whether they knew their lineage, whether they knew all of that stuff. Or even if they knew making it up would destroy a person's reputation, because our society continued to villainize and criminalize anything Negro. And that's just the truth of this situation. And whether you like it or not, I would rather more people want to be Black. I'm tired of my skin tone feeling like it's a bad thing. And it's always the people who don't have that stigma against them, whether they can identify as something else as they want to try to call it. Because they think being mixed means, oh, I don't have to claim anything. We could claim our own ethnic identity. And technically you could. Nobody is stopping anybody from being what they want to be. What I want them to stop doing is shitting on those of us who've never felt a problem being Black. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And if you are biracial, as they like to call it, or bi-ethnic, as it really technically is, because ethnically speaking, That is what the terminology should be, because we're all humans. If you can identify as black because of one parent, do so. Nobody is stopping you. If you want to identify as your white parent, do so. No one's stopping you. The only person that can stop you from being comfortable in who you are is you. But too many people don't want to hear that. Oh, she's being woke. Just being a person. Tired of this world trying to set weird, arbitrary rules that only help continue fractures, continue divide, continue unnecessary fight, and impede progress that we should have had by now. I was told by this year in time we'd be like the Jetsons. I even wrote about that in my story. I thought that we have amazing sky cities. We would have interstellar travel by now. And instead, we are still fighting over the same fossil fuels and resources. We're letting some madman over in Russia bomb innocent people. And we're arguing with each other over terms like CRT and M&Ms. It is a mess. And this is shameful. It drives me nuts that it is socially acceptable for them to train their kids to literally be domestic terrorists. Our kids can't walk around in a hoodie. Our kids can't be carrying a toy that looks like a weapon. Our kids can't exist in their own country as American citizens and be under the same protections. It has to stop. And we have to be the ones to see the issue, take on the issue smartly. I know some people are like, oh, we got to confront it. We've got to be in people's face and yelling. No. The quickest way to nullify these domestic terrorists, whether people want to accept this fact or not, is through the ballot. Electing and vetting people who want to get the work done. If we had 10 more Lauren Underwoods in our House alone, or even better yet, in our Senate, if we had more Justice Ketanji Jackson Browns on not just a Supreme Court level, but at a state judicial level, if we had more Hakeem Jeffries running things, this country would be so much more further than it is. But we keep playing games and acting like, well, I don't have anybody like that running. When you literally have races with so many people that want to do the job, but oh, I don't really know their name. They're not a rock star. They're not going to sit with a book written by a racist for a photo op enough for me, 10. What if I don't know their stunts well enough? What if they're not on social media and influencing enough? I had a young man try me a few days ago talking about, well, AOC's an influencer. Don't you need that in politics? For what? Why would she's not influencing her fellow legislators? All she's doing is getting into back and forth with people and being the distraction. I need people who can pass bills, who can turn those bills into viable things for their constituents and beyond. And if she can't do that, she's a waste of my time. I know in the viral age, stunts seem like there's something. This is why everybody's famous now for TikToks, YouTubes, and everything else. I'm not trying to knock people's bag if they want to be famous for being their own personality. I will knock their bag if they're wasting a fucking seat that could go to somebody who actually wants to draft bills, which last I checked is little Miss Ocasio-Cortez's job. What troubles me about this current mindset, especially about who deserves to be where and what and why we're here. When I see people overseas talking about America's not going to solve our gun problem, it makes me sad because I know right now they're right. Because the one thing we can do to make things better, the one thing we should be doing to truly organize around the NRA, who several GOP members are key puppets for them, is make sure that they have less power within our congressional halls. And we have the power to do that by vetting and voting for people who have no ties, who have horrible records with the NRA. And instead, we're just like, it's not going to matter. A school shooting just happened. A mass shooting just happened. Another domestic incident with guns just happened. All of our issues with guns are self-inflicted. And I say this as somebody who does still believe that Americans have the right to be registered, and they should be registered, but legal gun ownership is an American right. I've always believed that. I grew up around them, I was trained to use them. And then so my nervous breakdown when it was put on the books that because of my committing that I was not legally allowed to have guns, which was repealed by 45. So now I could legally be a gun owner again. I honored the fact that no, I cannot legally own a weapon. I do not want that trouble. But some people didn't care. And you are the ones that ruin it for those who do. And then you've got these indoctrinators, as I like to call them, who think they're going to turn America back into their religious theocracy. Whose religion? It's funny how you like to push religion as you really step on other people's faith, as you throw around anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim rhetoric, anti anybody you don't know or understand. And I'm pretty sure that Bible you claim to be about asks you not to do that. But it doesn't stop you from spreading that poison. And that poison is only going to destroy the faith you claim to care about. Bringing it back to that Joel Osteen quote because it bothered me. And what bothered me the most about it was him acting like he's a light that's going to fight the darkness. When we are literally a planet in a big cosmic envelope of both light and dark, because it is about balance. It is about walking the path and being the best you can be without diminishing anybody, because your best you shouldn't come at the expense of other people. But we have raised a society far too much that believe that the only way that they can look their best, the only way they can be better is to have people to step on. And that is a human driven problem. And that is something Martin Luther King Jr. would have been against with his whole spirit. And what I want people to remember as they continuously invoke his name, at the people whose grandparents marched with him, at the people who understood his message went beyond just us, the people who say Black Lives Matter, but not only Black lives, but because our lives are in the most jeopardy as citizens of our nation who have to worry about police wellness checks turning into death, like what happened to Tatiana Jackson, who have to worry about our necks being crushed or kneeled on, like George Floyd, who have to worry about laying in their beds like Breonna Taylor. When you exist in your country and know that your number could be up just existing because they have criminalized us being black, because they never forgiven us for being emancipated, because they've wanted us to just be silent. His birthday hurts because we are still not living the dream that he talked about. And it is on us. It is on us who still don't vote. It is on us who take more energy to try to hustle our way into looking instead of really taking care of our communities. It is on us who still practice the self-hate. And one of the things I tell black people, I know it's hard, especially those of us whose families taught us how to code switch, taught us how to navigate white spaces. I know that self-loathing voice is there. And if you try to deny it, I'm going to call you a liar, because all of us have it. Some of us have learned through therapy, through talking with friends and people who care, how to not let that voice dominate anymore. But you would be a freaking liar if you are black anywhere in this globe and haven't felt a little bit of just tiredness of it, because you don't get a break. So I completely understand, and I want you to know that I love you. I know it's hard, and it gets me emotional because it took somebody saying that to me for me to hear it. Because loving myself was one of the hardest things to admit, because there was a long time where I didn't. And I think everybody, whether they are black, biracial, whether they're black, whatever that means, because a lot of us, due to being adult descendants of slaves, are not black. Some of you gatekeepers are trying it. But if you knew your history, you know you probably have more white in you than you think. It is not an easy topic at all. And I need black people to understand that it is okay to process it all because it's real. Trying to exist with this, trying to understand that it is not your fault and that hatred that people have is a them problem, it takes time. And so many of us don't survive it. So if you are still here, I love you. I just want more people to understand how hard it is. And I don't like getting emotional like this. But the last 3 days, I've had nothing but time to reflect about what it means to exist in my own country, what it means to have a son in this country as well, what it means to be in my current relationship, which I love. Everybody knows that Axiom and Wolf and I are super close. We have been best friends for 20 years. He's always been that kind of friend that he doesn't pretend to understand everything. He just listens. He shares with me how he feels about things, and I share back. He actually believes that, people can be good. And it's one of the things that not only drew me to being friends with him, but eventually convinced me that, yeah, we would be a good couple. Because it wasn't about, you know, I'm just attracted to you. It's, I like everything about you. Everything we talk about works. Everything we just click. And having that kind of partnership is so vital. But it does come with issues. A lot of it is external, yes. We don't have control over the way our families handled the situation, but we just navigate it together. And even the last few days, seeing how ridiculous some people were being, he was like, why are they tossing? That isn't even the actual MLK quote. I think he seen some person put on Facebook, and I was like, I know. We're going to see a lot of that. A lot of people that talk the talk but could never walk the walk. And if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody who identifies as black, or even a biracial person of color, you have to understand that yesterday was a hard day for a lot of us, because we reconcile what Dr. King wants on top of the fact that we are celebrating his death after he's been assassinated. We reconcile that while we want what he saw, envisioned, preached for, we're still not there yet. We watch as our country pays lip service and $10 million ugly art pieces instead of trying to come up with a decent reparations plan, heal the nation's first sin. Everybody makes excuses because they still want ways to devalue our skin. And until that reality is broached, taken care of, this day is just going to be more lip service and more people stunting than it is a true celebration of Dr. King and his dream. I will always appreciate his legacy. It shouldn't have had to come at his death for people to appreciate the words he was saying or what he was doing with those marches and protests, because he was more than just a speech on Washington. Anybody who sat in his church I know it was secondhand for me because I didn't get to go, but everybody who got to hear his words from a pulpit was inspired to not just be radicalized, as some people back then thought it was going to be, but to embrace their community, to help, to get people voting, to get people organized, to peacefully protest. He didn't want people smashing up things, which is what they did the night he got assassinated, whether he wanted that or not. Black people were angry We were tired. We gave you peaceful protest and you met us with a bullet. So yeah, there was riots after that. And there were several notable riots after, looking at Los Angeles after Rodney King was very much on camera being beaten to death. And even after, we still continue on. George Floyd protests, those weren't violent as much as the media tried to make it. Most of the violence were for character actors, like that one guy that looked like he worked for like Nordstrom or something, causing trouble, trying to get us in trouble when we were asking for our lives to not be snuffed out from the people who literally wear protected serve on their uniform, but can be selective on who that goes for. We just want to exist. We want our lives to matter along with everybody else's. That's why we don't say Black lives only matter. We just want our lives to matter to more than just us. And the more people are starting to recognize that, we get pushed back from the side going, oh, you're being woke. Being woke is bad. And I ask people who say that to me all the time, so you're admitting openly that being decent is bad, because we need to get it out the way. If you're anti-woke, you're anti-decency. Well, if I let you be black comfortably, then we gotta let trans people be trans comfortably and gay people be gay comfortably. And where does it stop? At all of us comfortably living. I mean, is it really that hard? Is it that bad for people to think of a world where you mind your business, you're happy in your own skin and doing your own thing, and you're not worried about what another grown folk is doing? You're not even worried about what grown folks are raising their kids to be, because that's their business unless they're hurting them. You're minding your own business because the world doesn't always revolve around you. Yet what you do can really make the world go round. Your actions, how you carry yourself, how you work within your community. Is it that bad to open your eyes to not being a shitty human being? I just want people to think on this. I'm going to get ready to wrap this up, y'all. I really appreciate you bearing with me. I really needed that 3-day break. It was just a nice detox. I didn't pay attention to who was fighting. I missed Buttergate. That's the only little regret I had, because it was funny reading back some of the asinine things people were trying to tell poor Afro Sappy for daring to bake cookies. Honestly speaking, I think taking social media breaks is needed. I think a lot of us get really attached to checking it every day, getting our blood pressure up. And for what? I love my friends. I have plenty of ways to catch y'all, either on Discord, your Twitch streams. I don't have to be on Twitter or even post every day. No, I'm trying to get better about posting on posts. I already signed up for Spoutable too, because honestly speaking, with all the art and other work that we're trying to get done and put forward, I can't afford to not have socials. Even releasing the book, social media helped get it out there a lot more than not having that stuff. So I do believe in the power of social media. I'm just tired of people trying to tell others what to do on that too. If I don't like what somebody posts or tweets out, and as long as it's not something violent or offensive that really should be countered, I mind my business. People push dumb stuff all the time. People push unhygienic stuff all the time. I don't have to be the Twitter cops. I don't have to police what people put out there, and people are allowed to have their opinion. We all have to start learning how to ignore certain things on social media. Some people are obviously on there trying to get attention. You don't have to give them to them. Your time is precious. Learn how to utilize it. That I will be back Friday night for another Bonnet Chronicles. Thank you all for sitting in this one. HB Douglas, Fluffy, Lisa, so many of you. I appreciate all of you for constantly supporting the stream. Even if you're just sitting there, and Zai, I know you're listening at work. Mona Lisa. I just wanted to get your name right. I'm going to go wrap this up, make some dinner. I will have this cast up on YouTube a little bit later. And like I said, I'll be back Friday night for Bonnet Chronicles. Till then, please take care of yourself and just do your best to be defiantly decent. That's all. See you next time. Love you too, Fluffy. Thank you.